Good evening, gamers, and welcome to a video that I can best describe as a distilled ramble about one of my favorite games ever created. I don't tend to rank things, but if I did, I'd probably put the subject of this video around my third or fourth favorite game of all time, which is pretty damn good considering it's fighting with such heavy hitters as Dark Souls 3, Portal 2, and Silksong. I don't heap on the praise for no reason either, but I just so happened to be enough of a non-functional autist to the degree that Brutal Orchestra hit my brain at the perfect angle to get lodged in real deep. And now you all get to suffer through me talking about one of my favorite games of all time. You got through the intro, so you're locked in now. You gotta watch the whole thing. I don't make the rules. But you can skip this part because I'm gonna do an ad read. For a long while now, I've been shilling for critical error computing, and I'm happy to inform you all that I'm still doing that. For those of you who are new here, Critical Error Computing is a computer building company located in my hometown and manned by a childhood friend of mine. They're taking an innovative approach to their business model by focusing entirely on customer communication and customizability. Most other computer companies will give you a list of templates to choose from, but Critical Error Computing will literally build whatever PC you could possibly want, whether that be a ridiculously expensive electronic deity produced by mortal hands, or a black plastic shitbox designed as a super cost-effective way to run the increasingly intensive games that come out more and more unoptimized with each year of releases. Knowing my audience, I'm sure a lot of you will pick the latter, and that's entirely a possibility. With a little bit of research, you can get a relatively cheap computer that can run exactly what you need it to, made by people that want to help you achieve your goal instead of trying to extract every cent from you that they can. I'd give it some thought if your computer is starting to struggle to keep up with newer releases. If you do end up deciding to order something, my only request is that you use my affiliate link at criticalerrorcomputing.com/Daszombes, so I can get supported as well. Alright, shilling done. Welcome back, Sponsor Block users. Glad to see you're still with us. So, the big question first. What is Brutal Orchestra? Well, Brutal Orchestra is a game by Talia Mare, the same person who made Crawling Angels, Swallow the Sea, and Perfect Vermin. Using hard labels, Brutal Orchestra is a turn-based strategy roguelike RPG, which is a lot of buzzwords to say you take a varied cast of characters through a wacky setting with an in-depth combat system that rewards strategizing, and also if you die you have to restart the run. Point being, I love roguelikes, most of the time. The reason this video took so long to come out is because I've sunk a triple-digit amount of hours into Mugenics over the past few months, and I haven't found a way to monetize that hyperfixation yet, so I'm talking about a different roguelike that took over my life a few years ago. Also, hey, prerequisite, this is Editing DOS here, by the way, that's why my mic sounds slightly different. A notable portion of the footage that you'll be watching specifically for some of the earlier story cutscenes are from a stream I did back in 2022, which means the quality is going to be worse and there's going to be a chat in the bottom right. It's not going to be all the time, it's just going to be for the cutscenes because I feel kind of bad about stealing footage from other creators without their permission, and I'm not about to go ask. And I also don't feel like sacrificing my 200-hour save file with all the achievements for the sake of getting some extra footage for a video, so cope. So, Brutal Orchestra begins with a simple cutscene that portrays one thing. First off, we are Noak. We are dead, and the motherfucker who killed us is here with us, in Purgatory. Our friend Bosch, this weird goopy skeleton snake, is here to help us find him. So let's go. So, Brutal Orchestra is a roguelike. We've got to get through 2 full areas of enemies to find the bastard that killed us. If we die, we've got to restart from the beginning. Now, there's the basic tutorials to go over, but Bosch can suck my dick. It's my turn to give a tutorial. You see this? This is your pigment bar. There are 4 different colors of pigment: yellow, red, blue, and purple. Each attack you can perform takes an amount of this pigment as a cost. You can use an attack even if you don't have the right types of pigment, but it'll hurt you. When dealing direct damage to an enemy, so damage that isn't damage over time effect or applied by a status, you knock out 2 pigment of their health color, with a 40% chance to get a lucky pigment, which is by default a blue pigment, at the end of every time you make an attack. You also get 1 pigment of your health color whenever you take direct damage, but you shouldn't just aim to fill your bar as quickly as possible, as if you get too much pigment, you'll eventually suffer overflow, doing chip damage to your entire party at the end of every turn. Combat is done on this 5-space grid. You move around your guys and attack the enemies. Simple. You can see what the enemies do based off the timeline on the top of the screen. Tutorial done. Noik, the first character you get, is defined primarily by his ability to start fights. All of his abilities utilize yellow pigment, which you get in its own bar, 3 at the start of every turn. And he has a big buff that he can give himself that acts as a convenient way to remove 3 purple pigment, which can otherwise be quite tough to remove without specific characters. For now on, we just need to kill the starter fish. They're not hard, whack 'em. After a tutorial showing us a new character named Boyle, whose main deal is being a bruiser that relies on the plentiful red pigment in this area to deal damage, and another character named Hans, a healer using the lucky blue pigment to help us out, we face down a large array of enemies. The enemies in the first area, the far shore, are quite unique despite it being the first area. We've obviously got the basic bitch fish enemies that just attack in front of them, but we've also got status appliers that reposition you, enemies that randomize the pigment bar and shuffle enemy positions, enemies that punish you for attacking other enemies, as well as enemies that manipulate pigment by either randomizing your stored pigment, giving you a shitload of pigment of their color, or removing your pigment constantly. I fucking hate you, Spoggle. Stop eating all my shit. This creativity also extends to the bosses, though. The Far Shore has a bunch of them, actually. Let me go over them real quick because they really rule and I want to talk about the bosses. There are only 3 right now. For the sake of pacing, we'll go in order of coolest, starting with the least cool and ending on the most cool. Entirely subjectively, by the way, as it should be. The first boss on the list is Roids. Roids is pretty cool. He's a wrestler. I tend to love wrestling fights in games. He's got red HP and oh my god, he has a lot of turns. Turns out his gimmick is pretty unique. By doing more than 2 damage, you can cancel one of his turns. Roids is a tutorial fight teaching players when to lay on the damage and when to avoid playing safe or using support moves. Each boss has a unique big attack as well. Roids is simple. He breaks your back and cripples you a bit, with a gnarly animation to go with it. As a matter of fact, all the animations in this game are gnarly as shit. You should play it, by the way. Oh yeah, and before I go on, let me quickly plug the wiki here. This game has possibly the most in-depth wiki that I've ever seen for a video game. The dev even did a bunch of Discord Q&As with trivia that you can only really easily access on the wiki, like how Roid's main motivation is his self-hatred. There's a bunch of these and they're all really awesome. Anyway, next up is Hickory. Hickory is a canon gay couple, doing their God-given right and expressing their burning hot love through oiling you up and then setting you on fire. They're a fight that focuses on target priority, as if both remain alive, they are easily the most dangerous boss in the first area, so you just gotta focus down at least one of them. Ideally, the one with the flamethrower as the oil guy just kinda lubes you up and beats you. If you don't manage good burst damage, they can heal each other up to their current HP with their big move, Burning Passion. Or Burning Passion less than 3, because it has a heart in the name. Very cute. Last up, Mobius, a widowed fisherman taking out his lonely angst on the local fish population. I love Mobius, and that's not just because he has one of my favorite tracks in the entire game, though that does make a point. Mobius is a unique boss because his health is blue, actually, which means you'll be flooded with a pigment type that has been especially rare up until now. Not quite as rare and as hard to remove as purple, but still, it's rare. He's also tanky as fuck and summons fish with red health, so you ideally want to stock up on red pigment so you can burst him down, or just have Hans or some other blue health healer use up all that delicious blue pigment on keeping you all alive. He relies a lot on positioning because he himself can't move. He'll broadcast which spaces he's attacking, be that the 3 spaces in front of him or the 2 on the side. Either way, his big move, Obsession, hits everyone, oiling them up and applying Ruptured to one guy. Oil Slicked causes you to move around randomly whenever you're hit by direct damage, and Ruptured causes you to take indirect damage whenever you move. See this energy? After you knock out whichever boss you end up getting, you can finally make your way to the next area, the Orpheium, a sonorous rainstorm that's occupied by a number of deadly creatures. Primarily the music men and conductors, worshippers of the ungod that rules over this area, with tumors covering their heads that play out the ungod's song. Fucked up, yeah? Well, good. You should be afraid, because if you don't kill these guys fast enough, they will transform into instruments that can do some pretty mean shit to your party. So if you see one about to use Feel the Rhythm, make sure you file a noise complaint before they file your death certificate. Point is, it's quite the nightmare. So far, Purgatory's been pretty neat. Most of the so-called fools we encountered in the far shore were either just miserable or the weirdest little freaks on the planet. Some of them joined us, but this whole time, everything's been really convincingly Purgatory-esque. Around here, we start to see more of the horrific life of this area. Before, it was just flarbs and fish piloting corpses and such. But here we get to see seemingly deities affecting the entire realm around them. The suggested lore here is really neat, but I'll get more into that later. First off, we need to go over the 2 bosses we can find here. First up is the Ouroboros, a cameo appearance from one of Talia's other games, Swallow the Sea, one of many. This multi-segmented big guy has the unique trait of fucking with the attack timeline. We can't see what the head is gonna do, and one of the moves it can use is Starvation, his big attack that deals a whopping 21 damage to the thing in front of it. Ow. Luckily, he has a passive that makes him have to use every move before he can use the same move twice. So once he does use Starvation, we're safe to sit in front of him until he uses his other 2 moves, one of which will heal us and the other of which does some pretty notable but not quite insta-kill damage. Then after he uses all those moves, we have to worry about Starvation again. Ideally, you'll want to take on this fight with less than 5 party members so that you can fuck around and consistently cycle what the other body parts are actually going to be doing so they don't sweep you into his mouth. Either that or bring a shield character. Keep up damage on the head, using the red pigment from his tail to fuel your attacks, and chip away making sure nobody gets eaten, and you'll be fine. Next up is the Smooth Skin. This sad little orphan boy weaponizes his own issues against you by constantly spawning visages of his family that repeatedly leave him. Oof. He can summon a visage of his mother, which will heal you and apply debuffs to you at the same time, his father, which will beat you senseless, his sibling, which will curse you and stop you from healing, and a visage of himself, which will utilize trauma, dealing a massive amount of damage to all enemies and then healing all enemies. Smoothskin himself will run around either utilizing a huge damage basic attack or summoning more of his visages. His health will also change colors as his family members die. Fun. Smoothskin puts constant pressure on you, so you need to ensure you're watching the timeline to avoid taking stray blows from Dad or getting cursed by the sibling, or even worse, getting mangled by the big man himself. Just keep the damage up and he'll eventually kick the bucket alongside all of his minions. Alright, good shit, you've beaten the last area of the game. Now, time for the final boss. You enter into the quarry. All you have to do is defeat the man who killed you, this pitiful corpse. Alright, he has 12 health. Is this like a fake out phase? No? Okay, there's a cutscene. We just stomp on his head in one turn. Good shit. I guess that's the end of the game. Alright, pack it up. Hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. Nah, I'm just kidding. This is obviously a fake out. If we instead choose to spare the pitiful corpse, he will utilize Reject Death and end the fight himself by choosing to try to live. Bosch, our guide this whole time, will call us a dumbass and enable hard mode. Once we relaunch the game, we'll find that, okay, Bosch seems to be killing us every time we launch the game. Eventually he lays off and berates us for a bit before announcing that we've invited some stronger forces, and then he leaves. We're left to wander the far shore for a while, eventually reaching Zanguango. I believe that's his name. He's a guitar player, and he has possibly the most important monologue in the entire game. I'll read it out.
Do you hear that?
Oh?
It almost sounds like music. Almost.
I thought it sounded nice.
But does that make it music? Either way, I appreciate you saying so. You look troubled. Are you?
Yeah, I am.
May I take a guess?
Sure.
Don't know who you are anymore, and your deal with the devil went sour.
How did you know that?
Well, a broken clock is right twice. And if a clock can muster that, then you'd be shocked by what a broken person can do. So this devil, he have a name? Bosch. Like the painter? The painter? Hieronymus Bosch, famed artist of scary nonsense. Ears with knives sprouting from them, birds with cauldrons on their heads, lots of naked people for some reason. Ring any bells? I had forgotten about Bosch. The real Bosch, that is. Why does it hurt to think about him? Easy. Maybe just tell me about yourself instead. If you had none of these worries and I could just go to your happy place, what would that be like? I don't know. I think I worked. I think I gutted fish. I would cut fish apart with someone. I think they were my father. You enjoy cutting up fish? No, I hated it. I always had this intrusive thought of some fish cutting me apart, pulling out my insides. So then you dodged my question. What do you do for fun? I think I would paint little pictures. Oh, creative. What would you paint? I spent so much time making my own paints. I painted creatures and places that didn't exist. I painted my own little world. Why are all the specifics so fuzzy? Let's talk about Bosch again for a second. The demon. Would you say he's also a creative? I think so. What makes you say that? I don't know. Have you ever loaned yourself money? What? Why would I? You ever ask yourself to move out of the way because you were blocking the view? No, that doesn't make sense. I wouldn't do any of that. I mean, it's myself. I'd just do it. Yeah, you'd just do it. You ever ask yourself a question? No. Why would you? You'd already know the answer. But you have, haven't you? I have. You see, we're not quite as unified as we like to think. I think this devil, this Bosch, might be you asking yourself a question the hard way. I think you need to tell yourself how you feel. You're only insane if you don't know you're talking to yourself. Knowing that reflection is you just makes you aware. Do you hear that? It's music. Funny. All it took was recognizing it already was. I have to leave. I need to go talk to him before this gets worse. But thanks. I think I'm better for having crossed paths with you. No, kid. We've never crossed paths. We've just been in the same place.
Sanguango is my favorite. I love him. I know he definitely has a Mexican accent in the game, but I don't know how to do a Mexican accent, which is weird because I can do lots of other ones, just not that one. He gets Noak on his feet and sends him back to Bosch, who reveals a simple truth, one teased by that conversation. Bosch is not a separate individual. Bosch is us. Bosch is Noak. Specifically, it's the part of Noak that threw himself off the lip of the quarry to begin with. So it turns out, the man who killed us, that pitiful corpse, was Noak. It was us. Jumped into a quarry and smashed our skull on the rocks. We're in the stages just before our death. Noak, or the part of Noak that still identifies as Noak, dragged them into purgatory. Whether it's a dream or a real place is unknown, but we're here now, and we're about to be dragged away by an intruder. If Noak has any hope of finding peace, he needs to find that intruder first past the edge of the Orpheium. Welcome to Hard Mode, the real game. Hard Mode changes a bunch. I won't go over everything, but there's a new boss in both the new areas, a few new enemies, and an entirely new realm. Let's go over the bosses first. The Far Shore gets Trigger Fingers, a dead Nazi who's about to shoot himself in the head. Seems he's not too intent on doing it right now, though, or this fight would be a lot easier. His main gimmick is the Formless trait, which changes one of his attacks to another attack every time he takes direct damage. You can also see this trait on the Ouroboros' body. This is primarily utilized to stop him from attacking with Headshot, an attack that instantly kills whoever is in front of him. So ideally, you either want to not be in front of him, which is hard because another attack constricts your party members, making them immobile, or just re-roll him desperately in the hopes that he stops wanting to dome your strongest guy. Or just throw Noak in there, because he actually comes back after he dies. Another thing about Trigger Fingers, he is a top 3 music track in the entire game. Good for him. He's literally competing with one of the final bosses for that spot, but damn dude, get it. The Orpheium, on the other hand, adds in the Charcarian, an incredibly interesting endurance fight that can be very punishing if you're lacking on both damage and healing. He'll move around the screen, slashing people up and applying scars, which increases all damage by a flat 1 per stack, as well as Frail, which doubles all damage taken once per stack. This seems similar to Roids, but without the overexert gimmick. That is until you kill him, and he drops to the ground as the Charkarian's corpse. Make sure to beat him while he's down, because he's not staying down. After one turn of rotting, he gets back up, setting his HP to the current HP of his corpse, meaning the more damage you deal to the corpse, the less HP he'll have when he gets back up. You win the fight by killing the corpse. Charkarian is a great example of the massive amount of untold lore the wiki offers, because he was the ancient king of a race of scholarly giants that were native to Purgatory before humans showed up. He made a pact with a demon, and now he lives forever, having long since gone insane from the agony of being constantly reborn. This is information you would otherwise only get from the Steam trading cards. It's not really consequential, but this game rules, and its lore is surprisingly really deep. Maybe I'll make a video on it if people are interested. It could be fun. I do love surfing wikis. Alright, time for everybody's random segment that I couldn't insert into another spot on the fucking script. Tier Slop. I hope you're all ready, because it's time for me to go over every single character in Brutal Orchestra based on how good I think they are at beating the game and being useful. You all love Tier Slop. You all love seeing things go on a list, and boy, I do too. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll do more Tier Slop. Here we go.
Starting off in D tier, I actually had to re-record this segment because my opinions changed after recording footage for this video. Originally, this place was going to go to Mung, but as a matter of fact, I think Arnold deserves to be here. Now, Arnold is a joke character to the same degree as what Mung is, but what Mung makes up for, that you'll hear, Arnold does not. Arnold doesn't really have any good builds, honestly. He's intentionally designed around being weak, and does his job rather well. I do love him, but he is not very good. He can do something on his own. Solo Arnold runs are feasible, whereas solo Mung runs are not. But in terms of the actual game outside of solo runs, I don't think Arnold really brings anything to the table that cannot be done by anyone else. Now, Mung, on the other hand, is surprisingly useful, because similar to another character we'll see later, he's an item, not a party member. I mean, he is a party member, but he's more akin to an item because you get 3 of them if you choose it at the start, and they're all expendable and terrible, meaning that you can use them as free movement actions as well as pigment converters, being capable of turning 2 yellow pigment into either damage or into 1 blue pigment, which can really enable certain healers like Thipe and Hans who struggle to get access to their primary pigment color. Now, I should say, by the Orpheium, all your Mung are probably going to be dead, but they're going to get you to the Orpheium in a better piece than some other party members at least would. And if you come upon the Mung encounter, you're probably going to end up with at least 40 of them. So you're kind of set. Next up is C tier, with our first real party member, Formosus. Okay, even after his buff, he's kinda stinky. Formosus is a character that takes advantage of enemies that already have status effects applied to them, as well as doing damage through Divine Protection, which is a buff that redirects damage dealt to one enemy onto other enemies. The issue is that he's really niche and needs other party members to support him, meaning he's rarely pulling any weight when you do actually get him. Next up is Gospel. Gospel is weird. He's a statue that can't move or heal, but has a whopping 100 HP and a bunch of useful abilities. The issue is that those abilities require a lot of yellow pigment to utilize. He's more of an item than a party member, because he can't heal and he can't move on his own, so you have to swap him into areas like that. It's pretty good in some fights where you really enjoy having a character that can take a dickload of damage, but otherwise he's very unreliable. Now, he is more of an item than a party member, and he does do a good job at being an item, but he's still not great compared to actually having a good party member in his place. Next up is Agon. Similar to Gospel, Agon has a lot of HP and can't heal, but he can move. He has some solidly good moves, but usually you'll just be switching him into incoming attacks and using him as either a solidly okay healer, or I guess he can also move people around. He's not fantastic. Next up is Fennec.
Fennec is an infinitely scaling shield character with counter damage. The main issue is that he's inconsistent. When supported by another good healer, he can really shine by preventing damage, but he also can't keep an entire team alive and struggles without sustain. He can be a godsend into a lot of bosses like Ouroboros, but overall, he's a very feast or famine character that can either carry your run or be completely useless, and that unreliability usually tends towards the latter. Next up is Thipe, a good healer that has a few issues. Thipe is immensely fragile and can die to a stray sneeze from any of the enemies near the end of the game. This makes them exceptionally risky. Unfortunately, I don't think their abilities are really good enough to work around that fact. Alright, last in C tier is Anton. Maybe this is an unpopular opinion. I do not care for Anton. He insists upon himself. Anton is your very classic rogue character, but he's unreliable and focused on manipulating the battlefield while keeping himself alive. Is what I would say if half the time that unreliability didn't lead to Skittish sending him directly into Death's Embrace. Starting in B tier with Cranes, another inconsistent healer. Cranes is brought down almost exclusively by having the Slippery passive, meaning he'll randomly move around when directly damaged. This makes him very inconsistent. I've had entire fights ruined because Cranes moved in the direction of death instead of away from it, either killing him or swapping one of my party members into their death. That unreliability, alongside the fact that he has to take damage to heal with his strongest ability, means that you'll be picking up his slack more often than you'd like. Next up is Shelly K, a strange character focused on a lot of really weird abilities with a lot of weird caveats. She's fun to use and work around, but a lot of her abilities don't have the appeal simpler ones can achieve. Her best move is easily the one that applies Ruptured and Oil Slicked, but that floods you with pigment. Overall, she's a hard character to make work, but can be worth it. Next up is Boyle, a very solid character. He's your basic bruiser warrior type with good tank and good damage. I'd say every character above here has more positives than negatives. Boyle is just okay. He's not great, but he can make stuff work under good circumstances, and he can fill in gaps if your party needs damage or tank. Next up is Mordrake. This is my favorite character in the game. Unfortunately, he's very unreliable. On solo runs, he can easily take over, but you have to build around him a whole lot to make him work, otherwise he's just a pigment sink. He can summon clones to damage enemies, and more importantly, shunt themselves in front of dangerous attacks, making him an arguably better Fennec in some fights. Next up is Hans. He's the archetypal cleric healer guy. He's great, he does a lot of healing, he does his job super well, but struggles in departments that another later character thrives in. He can save your runs early, but runs out of steam once the amount of healing you need goes down as you improve at the game. Next up is Noak. Hey look, it's the guy we've been talking about. He's a fantastic fight starter, and can easily take over when leveled up and kitted out. But he lacks versatility, and oftentimes serves as just a pigment gatherer or a meat shield due to his immortality. Now, Dimitri, the love child of Boyle and Noak. Dimitri is focused around fire. His big issue of lighting the field on fire underneath his feet can be easily negated and is easily made worth it due to his spreading of fire onto the enemy field. Main issue is that he can step on Noak's toes as he needs a lot of yellow pigment to thrive. Next up is Longliver. Many times I have had to do runs with Longliver as my only healer. Hell is real and it is Longliver support runs. If you get him on a good team though, his ability to either bulk up an ally or weaken an enemy by hopping inside of them is really useful, as well as his own self-sustain. But overall it pales in comparison to his ability to just not take up a board space and still have value. Now in A tier, Burnout. Burnout is hard to rank because his performance entirely depends on whether or not he feels like being nice to you. If Burnout doesn't feel like being nice, he's literally just, he's just a worse Boyle. But if he feels like gracing you with good luck, holy fuck, Burnout can make the magic happen and wipe all your worries away. God bless you, Burnout. We love gambling. Next up is Cleaver. Speaking of Boyle, here's his cooler older brother. Cleaver is a mixed damage and status applier capable of applying a lot of scars and ruptured to enemies, or even trade his own HP pool for additional attacks. He's reliable and almost always useful, especially on teams that can make use of his ruptured. Next up, Griffin. Speaking of reliable, Griffin isn't. He's an all-or-nothing glass cannon character that can double his damage in return for taking double damage. Either you one-shot the final boss, or you die to a random attack you didn't think about in the Orpheium. No other ways. Next up, Rags. An unorthodox support. Rags focuses on linking enemies together, causing all damage to be shared. She can act as a useful tank against weaker enemies and applies a lot of scars, but doesn't provide any sustain to her team. When supported by another healer, she can shine like nobody else. Next up, Smokestacks, the god of pigment control. Smokestacks is your best friend on pigment-hungry builds. Never again will you take overflow damage. Never again will you struggle with purple pigment requirements. Now, he can struggle when you're not having pigment issues, but even then he's still pretty damn tanky and can act as a purple pigment generator for party members who do need it. But even then, at this point, like, you're never having to worry about overflow again. That's crazy. Next up is Leviat. You know what I was talking about with Hans? Yeah, this is better Hans, capable of doing stupid damage and outputting stupid healing for a low price of exclusively red pigment and some chip damage to your party members. Leviat is only held back by having the slippery passive, but if you're playing smart, he won't take damage anyway, unless he does, and then he'll usually get himself killed. Next up is Clive, reliability incarnate. You want a guy who can do everything well? There's Clive. He can heal himself, remove his own statuses, deal consistent damage, and even remove some pigment. He's everything you could ever want and more. There's never going to be a run where he's not at least a consideration on your team when you see him. Alright, S tier time, the best 3 characters in the entire game, starting out with Splig. Now hold on, before you judge me too harshly, I do think Splig is kinda goated, and that's exclusively because of buffed amalgam. It's completely ridiculous. You can get any single pigment you want in the entire game with one attack. All those characters that have bad pigment requirements like Formosus, Dimitri, Hans, and the 2 remaining characters on this list, they are all made better because Splig can just get their shit for free. The rest of him is just a really shitty healer, but he makes up for it by removing all of your pigment problems for the rest of the game. Next up is Pearl. Holy mother of Pearl, it's Pearl. This monstrous attacker can turn loads of pigment into some of the craziest damage you've ever seen. With the newly added sustain to her kit and enough damage to solo most of the final bosses, support her with some good pigment managers like Splig or Smokestacks, and you have a run-defining character. Finally, best character in the game, Bimini. Bimi is ridiculous in a way you don't often see. She's only got 1 HP, but she's constantly affected with divine protection, meaning she cannot take damage. Her abilities are pigment hungry, but she'll only ever take 1 overflow damage if you don't think about the scars that she applies to herself, which she can remove, by the way. She works around every single other one of her weaknesses, and she almost always manages to make every run she's in into a cakewalk. In the few runs that she doesn't do well, she avoids even being a liability because her damage is just that nuts. I beat the joke boss of this game by grinding Bimini. She's that good. Alright. That was your tier slot break. You know every character now, good for you. Now let's finish the game. Finally, we find ourselves ready to enter the final area. Past the sonorous beaches of the Orpheium, we reach the garden. This place is horrifying, from a gameplay standpoint, but also from a lore standpoint. While appearing like a big, vast plain of black oil and white hands, the garden is actually representative of the deepest regions of Noak's mind. So, listen, I know he killed himself, but what the fuck is wrong with you, Noak? Look at some of these enemies. They're all evil as fuck, too. The garden is one of the hardest final areas in any roguelike, boasting some super tough enemies that you need to navigate around incredibly carefully. Each click to advance to the next encounter feels like you're gambling. Oh, you were hoping for the encounter consisting of you beating the snot out of 5 babies and their gender-fluid parent. Too bad. Now you have to fight 4 of those parents, and they're all using indulgence on turn 1. Good luck fighting a Zeitgeist, idiot. We've got enemies that gain turns when damaged. We've got enemies that can insta-kill your party. We've got enemies that are harder variants of Trigger Fingers with the Flarb's gimmick tacked on. The garden is unique because those with a good eye and knowledge of art history might recognize some of its inhabitants. This is because they're all based on Hieronymus Bosch paintings, specifically the Garden of Earthly Delights, which is where the area gets its name from. Almost all of these enemies can be found within the painting, and this isn't a coincidence. Noak mentioned it earlier in his conversation with Zongguango, but it's revealed that Bosch was a major inspiration to Noak, a young man who wished to be a painter. His aspirations were unrealistic. He sought to be as good as Bosch, viewed himself as inferior if he couldn't. His artistic frustration got so uncontrollable, so all-consuming, that he lost purpose and ended his own life. Even his own purgatory, his own brutal orchestra, is attributed to Hieronymus Bosch instead of himself. But we've spent long enough wandering the garden. It's time to face our fate. There are two final bosses at the end of Brutal Orchestra, Heaven and Osmond Sinox, but we can call them what they are, Bosch and Noek. Not literally, but more in what they represent. Let's begin with the simpler option, Heaven. Heaven is, in many ways, a complete representation of the garden itself. It's made up of those same pale hands and black ink. It's representative of that artistic guilt and dread that caused Noek to plunge off the quarry, dripping with the oil paints he used to trap himself in that awful nightmare of self-hatred and doubt. It attacks by spreading out scars and forcing deadly statuses onto one party member, damaging all party members if one does not take their punishment. It can flood you with pigment and even choose to instantly kill a party member with its ultimate attack, Come Home. In between each turn you whittle down its massive 200 uncolored HP, it'll spawn incarnates, extensions of heaven that give you an opportunity to either bunker down and heal, or attack and gain pigment. It's a battle of attrition, and is made a lot easier with multi-hitting moves and high-damage party members. Sustaining against heaven is a bad idea, as all it takes is one use of Come Home to crumble your entire strategy. Or you can just throw Noek under the bus and keep on trucking. Your choice. I say this boss represents Bosch, as it's a much more in-depth struggle with artistic freedom in the self, confronting Noek's biggest vices that cause his mind to split and create that hateful specter made of the same black oil that coats the garden. It's an esoteric struggle against Noek's biggest issues, therefore I think it's representative of Noek's biggest issues. Osmond, on the other hand, is a lot more concrete. Not in his lore, he's so fucking confusing, easily the biggest mystery in the game. Rather, he's more literal because rather than spreading status, he just kicks your shit in for the entire fight. He starts out the fight by monologuing at you, and then he proceeds to perform an impromptu gang initiation on your entire party. Fuck all that status application, forcing choices nonsense. Read the timeline or get wiped, pussy. Osmond tests your ability to plan ahead. All of his movement actions are showcased perfectly on the timeline. He'll attack and move similar to Charkarian, and at the end of his turn, he'll use Mortal Horizon, a move that instantly kills the party member he ends his turn in front of. Good luck. Careful planning and moves that hit diagonally will be your best friend. Each strike from him has a chance to apply Cursed, a status that prevents a target from being healed, so try your damn best to avoid damage and burst him down. He only has 80 HP after all. Just kidding, he has a second phase. Congrats, now there's two. They're both the exact same as the previous phase, just now there's one more. Double the fun. Osmond's a funny fight because his most dangerous move by far is his only non-damaging one. It's called Concentration, and it literally just moves him left or right. It's completely random. Seeing this move on the timeline is a wild card because suddenly the space you want to leave vacant isn't guaranteed anymore. It could be one of two. Sometimes you'll guess right, other times Noek's gotta eat another insta-kill. I say this fight is Noek because it literally is. It's weird. Osmond and Noek apparently share an ontological relation, basically some way they're the same. They apparently have similar mindsets, down to the fact that Osmond's second phase theme is entitled Osmond and Noek. Could Noek be facing down a variation of himself near the very end, fighting against his own humanity and seeing another similar enough to him in a similar situation? Is the meat mouth near the end a glimpse into Osmond's garden? Because this is Noek fighting alternate universe Noek. Kinda. It's a lot less concrete than Heaven, somehow, but I think the fact he kicks your shit in a similar way to how Noek kicks other people's shit in is a good enough link to justify the metaphor. After Noek beats the shit out of his alternate universe self, or optionally the symbolic representation of his vices, we finally see the real ending. Noek, real Noek, not skeleton Noek, stands up with newfound conviction and begins to paint on the walls of the quarry. Using his own blood, he paints a display of his own journey, not for renown or to match his idol, but for himself. The rain will wash it away in the morning before any come to see it, but it doesn't matter, because everyone who needs to see it is right here. This brutal orchestra, the journey taken by a broken man on both sides of his shattered skull, will never be perfect.
but it never needed to be. Novick doesn't die a tormented soul defined by his misery, but as a man changed by his journey through purgatory. This piece, this game, didn't need to be perfect. It only needed to be real, even if just for a moment. Brutal Orchestra is one of my favorite games of all time. I've been locked into all It's the Talia games ever since. She's hooked me through the jaw like a fish. I only made one video on it in the past, but it's been living rent-free in my brain to the extent that all I could really do during the recovery period after my wisdom teeth came out was write that Brutal Orchestra video essay that I should have made 3 years ago. If you stuck around since that original video, thank you, but if you're new here, consider going back to watch it. It's old, but it shows my initial reactions to everything in the game. If this video did its job, you should also go play Brutal Orchestra. There's a bunch of stuff I didn't mention, and honestly, the combat and completionist experience of the game is worth it, even if you know the story. It's got a lot of polish from each update that came out afterwards, so if you have $20 to spare, I'd recommend it more than almost any other video game out there. Speaking of which, to my audience, it's plug time again. This video was voted for by my patrons. It's been dead for a while, but as my channel gets revamped as the big 26 rolls onwards, I'm planning on revamping my Patreon too. Make it a bigger thing, you know? Anyways, if you joined at the $15 tier, you get to be shouted out on the board of official Daszombes. Yeah, that's what I'm calling it. Look at this board. I just made it. I could have asked Splash to do it, but I made it, partially because Splash is on the board. And that'd be weird, but also it makes it more special. Look, I even wrote down the 3 official Daszombes on the board in my own handwriting. Doesn't that feel genuine? I bet you feel so parasocially connected to me, you 3. Anyways, the 3 official Daszombes are Beppel, Splashpaws, and Wiggly Sniffer. Thank you for your continued patronage. May you be joined by many more on the board of official Daszombes, or the BOD. That's the acronym. You get to be written on my BOD. Don't confuse that with something else. It's specifically referring to the board of official Daszombes. Nothing else. You can go around and say how proud you are to be written on my BOD. You should say it to your mom. She'll love it. Anyways, that's the video. Buy a computer. Also give me money. Bye-bye.